Hey everyone, and welcome to another background building video. These videos are inspired by content and characters I create, but in the future will hopefully be driven by the community. So leave your suggestions below, and your ideas could be our next video. These videos will follow a format of making the character's backstory, the things you want that character to accomplish in the game, and the way you want their story to end. When speaking about races or a particular type of character, i.e., a fighter, we will consider the stereotypes involved and also the ways to show off the uniqueness of your class or race. These episodes will be helpful for those of you hoping to play a specific race or character and to inspire thoughts of how you can better incorporate your character into the game you'll be playing. Additionally, for the creative writers out there, consider how making a character in your story can be affected by the same factors we discuss. Without further delay, this week I bring to you a Fomorian villain. Basics: a Fomorian villain's traits. So unlike our last background builder, in this video we will be creating ourselves an NPC for the DM to control. This particular NPC is the underling I mentioned in my previous story core about Emo Turnus. When making this character, in some ways we will simplify the backstory. Being that the creature might only last for a single combat, depending upon your group, or may not even be able to deliver a single brief monologue about its intentions, you want to avoid investing deeply into the character. Unlike a character which you can bring back and go on to new adventures with, this NPC is meant to have his story cut short. However, if your group should invest in this NPC, then you can always add more later. Considering all that, let us talk about the Fomorian and his particular traits. Now, seeing as the Fomorian race is already a rather powerful thing, I did not give my villain any class. However, should you want to run this creature in a higher level adventure, you could add in a class. In sticking with the traditional Fomorian, I would say if you did add a class, you could go with a spellcaster or fighter of some type. One additional thing I did give my Fomorian was a background, and his background is that of a lowly criminal. Now let's go check out how these things affect our big fella. Race: Fomorian. The story goes that the Fomorians were among the most handsome of races, possessed of brilliant minds and an unrivaled magical ability. However, this lust for magic and power consumed them and would ultimately lead to their curse. Fomorians are cursed to be as malformed and hideous as their greed and malice make them. Wickedness and depravity are the cornerstones of Fomorian society, in which the strongest and cruelest giants rule. These beasts now dwell in caves and make hollow deals with others for power. Often the body type of a Fomorian prevents it from being adept at using anything other than a mere club. For this reason, Fomorians are often seen as brutish races with somewhat simplistic thoughts. However, the strong minds and previous experience in magic can often create a rare few who are cunning and dangerous outliers. Background: Criminal Enforcer. A criminal can come in many forms. However, the type of criminal we will focus on is the enforcer. In every great plan, there is always that time you need to call on the enforcer. Often using their brute strength and size, enforcers seek to disable and fend off would-be heroes, while others work to exact the plan. An enforcer can also be used as a bodyguard or to bully and harass a society for exploiting them. Enforcers are rarely a loner, and in that nature, they are used to allowing someone else to take care of the boring things. This relationship does vary from a normal king and bodyguard role, however, as the enforcer is often respected the same, if not more, than the person planning things. The power that the enforcer gives up by not being in charge is repaid in loot or privilege. The ego of an enforcer can often get the better of him, and those which are too dim-witted can often see their lives ended short. Breaking the mold. Fomorians are thought to be behemoths, the biggest of them rivaling trolls, and are among the mightiest bipedal creatures. So often, as we discussed, this can typecast you into being a dumb oaf with all your focus on beating people to death with a big club. An interesting mold-breaking side of Fomorians, however, are known to take up the magic arts. These casters use their superior height and healthy bodies to become masters of the arcane. These creatures, though few and far between, are treasured for their use as tacticians and sort of mortar-like support for large-scale wars. Another offset are those which learn to move swiftly, using their strength as a mode of being quick rather than mighty. This combined with their keen perception can make them very rare and deadly assassins. In the place of pure stealth and precision strikes, these Fomorians rather use their speed and strength to make their initial assault crippling. For the enforcer background, you could take the spin of being both the leader and the enforcer, or play up the aspect of being an honorable enforcer, who thinks his job is worth the same praise as that of a guard or hero, though he is protecting criminals. Level equals lore. I know if you have seen my videos before, then this part will be repetitive, but I cannot stress enough the importance of this rule. You need to make a character that is appropriate for your campaign or one-shot, and this rule does not only apply to player characters either. Nothing pulls me out of my role-playing fun as much as a character who does not belong in the story. Sure, I know the temptations as a DM to want to play with the newly released creatures from a book, or maybe you have a favorite monster you want to bring to your story, but you have to consider your game. As a DM, this is of course less commonly an issue, because if you want to play a certain creature, you can make the campaign that fits that creature. But I once again warn that not only should your characters or monsters make sense in your world, but its backstory should also be in line with your overall theme. You can have a dragon in nearly any D&D campaign, but maybe at least consider the color of the dragon, the motivations it would have to be in your world, doing the things it is doing. Everyone benefits from following the rule of level equals lore. Things you can do to get into character. Before we get to an explanation of this character in detail, often a question I get is how to get into character as an NPC or player. For players, it can often be easier as you have built such an elaborate character by the time you have made its backstory and the character sheet. However, the major things to note are what is the point of your character? What are they doing and why? And how could they accomplish this goal in this interaction? Remember, make it something that the character would reasonably consider doing. Often drawing from past experiences can help, and by doing this, it'll help be consistent when moving forward. Many tips exist to help you get into character, but the number one thing I will do is get into the character's body. This can include things as excessive as putting on a costume, to simply holding yourself like the character would. If I am a Fomorian, I kind of arch my back, give my head a bit of a tilt, maybe contort my arms a little bit. These things can help you feel like you are this character, and no longer just a player pretending to be something. A voice is another good addition, but going over the different ways to change your voice would take more time than we have here. Till you are able to perfect using multiple voices, I suggest saving the few different voices you can do well for your major characters and NPCs, and certainly avoid using the same accent for two major NPCs. While it is certainly possible for two people to talk similarly, in D&D a voice is unique, and as such I find it hard to use a voice again without players getting confused of who is speaking. Personal flavoring. Alright, so now we know what we are working with, and you are ready to get into character. Let us now move on to my intent for this creature. As I said before, this villain in particular is slated to be the first henchman and boss-like monster my party would meet. The intent is for him to be strong, but not overpowering. This campaign would not start at level 1 for that reason, as a Fomorian is too strong for level 1 NPCs. My goal for making my Fomorian villain is to have him possess a short, easy to understand, but interesting story. Since he is also the first encounter that my players have with this evil network, he also should provide some clues to the intent of the operation. For these reasons, I decided to give him a criminal past as an enforcer to provide him with added backstory, but also to show his ease in being a henchman due to previous work. For the choice of a Fomorian, I chose this creature because it was driven by a want for power, and this aligns with the Big Evil's goals, and of course the promises he would make to his followers. Seeing as Fomorians treasure power over wealth, it made a believable story as to why the creature would serve with no monetary compensation. Warped by his past as a Fomorian, he also would tend to be on the dense side of the intelligence scale, but would have enough knowledge to give the party a few clues should they be able to capture him. Being human-like, he also possessed the ability to give a bit of an exposé to the players, which gave him ample points to share clues and to give the players something to enjoy role-playing with. Needless to say, a crazy dire wolf would have been just as pleasing for my players to slay, but would not reward them with any information or ideas of where to head next in this adventure, which in your first encounter is pretty crucial. Beginning. Growing up great. Seeing as this NPC is meant to be dangled in front of my players as a possible kill, the plans for his story are not as deep. Therefore, our story will tend to go further into the creature's life than we might for a player character, as this creature will not have the chance of spanning multiple games and exploring a rich life. This Fomorian life began like all others had. Once rich with power beyond their belief, his ancestors ruled the magical circles and were unstoppable. This fate, unfortunately, would lead to the curse of the Fae, and the 2 generations later, the children of the Fomorians were still suffering from this punishment. Born simple and with no outstanding skills, our villain remained in his cave for years, bashing to death any life that dared trickle into his realm. Over time, he would grow strong, and when things finally stopped coming to him, he knew he had to come to them. He ventured out with a stone mace and no idea of the world above. Soon he found himself in a world of unimaginably weak creatures. His whole life he had dealt with terrible invaders, and now he was crushing beasts and small men left and right. Bored of his easy life, he sought to kill bigger things. It did not give him any reward, besides that of being stronger and better. Midlife, his legacy. Years after leaving his cave, he finally met his match. A mighty black dragon, as dark as the night, stood before him, having already disarmed him of his stone mace. All through the night these two clashed as claws met tough skin, and rocks bashed against hard scales. Our villain nearly thought himself beat many times that night, but something unholy drove him to fight harder and harder. Upon dawnbreak the dragon lay dead, and the Fomorian lay bloody and bruised on top of it. The next anyone heard of this being, he was over in a human tribe's village. A mighty new weapon accompanied this creature, along with a small goblin. This weapon was a flail of sorts, but crudely crafted from the bones of a giant creature. It dragged on the ground beside the villain, leaving a small trench wherever he walked. The goblin was known as Bizblow, and he was not a stupid goblin. He had learned many things over his years in combat and serving as a soldier in goblin war bands. It is unknown how the two met, or why they became allies, but what was clear was that anywhere the two roamed, the goblin was to be given payment for the protection the two provided. Our Fomorian cared little for these riches that Bizblow took in, but ever so often Bizblow gave him a trinket or some other magic item. The Fomorian could feel the power coursing through these items, like a river flowing through his hands. He enjoyed this feeling. Over time he would come to crave it more and more. He knew not of the things he was doing, but little by little the behemoth was getting addicted to magic like his ancestors before. Finale. The campaign introduction. Eventually the two would fall out of love for each other's company, and Biswell found himself not so immune with his giant gone. Our Fomorian would wander about, still looking for these items, until one day he would stumble upon a shrine teeming with this power he had felt in these objects. He broke into the locked door, and soon found the source of this power, a large black orb positioned in the middle of an altar. Upon releasing the orb from its seat, the orb spoke to him. Confused and scared, the orb was dropped. From its shattered fragments sprang a figure. This figure teemed with this power, and black dust clung to him, flicking outward occasionally like small tentacles. Serve me, and I will let you taste this power you crave. In time you will come to wield it, and with the things we will do, there will be more than enough power for us both. Yes, yes, what should we do? Where must we go? What are your plans? In due time. For now, I'll send you to Imoturnus. There we will begin our work, and should you succeed, more of this will be in your future. The dust flicked quickly onto our Fomorian, and he was overwhelmed by a new power. He immediately set a course to Imoturnus. No items in his bag, a dragon-spined flail on his back, and a small slab with notes scrawled upon it. He would serve this master like he had served Bisblow. Certainly this master would give him what he craved. And that, everyone, is my Fomorian villain. Hopefully this background building session was helpful, and if you liked what you saw, please share the channel and consider leaving a like. It really helps the channel grow. These background building sessions will be heavily influenced by the wants of the community, so please provide suggestions and give feedback on things you'd like to see. StoryCores aims to be the #1 channel for fostering creative storytelling and for finding inspiration to make your own stories come to life. Have a wonderful day, and please subscribe if you want to see more content. Thank you, and rest easy, my evil ones.